Today I'm taking a little break from shopping my stash to try out the new Stencil Builder tool. Let's jump right in. I love anything that spins, and that's because I love circles, precision, and the geometry of the designs that the spinning tools give. I started by putting the base down onto an 8x8 grip mat with a 6x6 panel of white cardstock underneath. I tried to be sure that it was centered, but if it's not exactly right, it won't matter because I'll be trimming down the panel to make a card later. I'm using the larger of the two pointed ovals. They both come in the one set, which gives you some variety in the size of the design. The stencils themselves are squares with points in the center. I'm not exactly sure what to call that shape, but they fit perfectly into the base, and as you turn them, you will get perfect placement as you build an 8-pointed design. In fact, they fit so perfectly, I added a little yellow tape to act as a handle to help me pull it out from the base. I'm using Party Dress and Sauna ink, one of my go-to combinations for flowers. When you use this tool, there's no way to put the stencil in the wrong place. There are 8 corners that fit exactly into the base. The worst thing you could do is to skip one or double up on one, but it's very easy visually to tell where you are. No counting, just foolproof, beautiful results. See? So now I want to layer up with the second stencil, which has that smaller petal. Really what I'd like to do is put the smaller petals in between the larger petals, but the design of this tool does not allow for that. That's okay. I lined it up with the base where it fits perfectly, and I turned it 8 times, and I got a beautiful layered look. Now, when you're taking the base of the tool off the grip mat, you do want to be careful. There are narrow areas near those 4 points, not the ones on the corners, but the ones on the sides. But a little bit of care and patience, you won't have any problems. You can also tape it down to a surface that isn't sticky, and that will reduce the risk of tearing it even further. Now, I can't leave well enough alone, and I have this stencil from a Colorful Life Designs that is in my unused list, so I guess I am shopping my stash at least a little bit today. Because the stencil is the same size as my cardstock, it couldn't grip the mat, and I had to tape it down. Then I used some Lisa Horton Anthracite ink and a blending brush. I've looked a long time for a good black blending ink, and this one blends nicely, doesn't stain my stamps or stencils, and it cleans up easily. I'm getting kind of a bohemian look, and as usual, I'm wondering why it took me so long to pull this stencil out. To finish this card, I spritzed the panel with some shimmer spray, and I added a Julie Hickey die-cut Happy Birthday sentiment. This is also from my stash, and I'm loving this small size. I can still get that sturdy, stacked-up look for my sentiment that I love, but it's not so big that it's covering my pretty design. So now I want to do a quick comparison to the Stencils 360 tool. I've had this tool for a while, and without bragging, I'm pretty good at it because I've been playing with it for a very long time and trying different things out. I haven't had a lot of time yet to do that with the Stencil Builder, but I did get a couple of experiments in today, so I'll come back to those in a little bit. Here's the 360 Friends Edition. This is the smaller version of the tool, and I want to see if I can use the Stencil Builder stencils with it. You can see that the pointy shape is bigger than the whole of the tool, but that's okay. That point at the top is going to work perfectly to help with the placement as I spin the stencil. I did add some tape to help keep the stencil still. Since it's not fitting into the base, it could easily move if I'm not careful. Next, I picked up the stencil and I moved it along to the solid dot. Now, I don't want to get all mathy here, but that solid dot indicates 30 degrees, and that's going to give me the ability to make a 6-pointed design. All the different shapes here on the tool stand for different degrees, and I can make 4-point, 6-point, 12-point, 16-point, and 24-point designs, even with this stencil, which wasn't designed to work with this tool. So there's my pretty 6-petal flower. It has a very similar look to the 8-petal flower I made with the Stencil Builder. So now next, the smaller petal. This time, because I'm using the shapes around the edge, I can offset the smaller petal and put it in between the larger ones. Now to get some precision, I have to keep my wits about me and be the one who makes sure that the stencil is in the correct placement. Remember with the Stencil Builder, it was foolproof. This one isn't, and I've proven that a few times for sure. My first layer was Fiesta Blue, and now I'm filling in with Flirty Fuchsia. See the beautiful dark blues that they make when they combine? This is another one of my favorite color combinations. Now, just to add some black, I grabbed another Stencil Builder stencil called Dotted Swirl, and I thought it would look pretty to have these curving dots just kind of hugging the larger petals. What I didn't realize was once I had the black ink on the stencil, I really couldn't see through it to where I was placing it. And since the placement of the stencil didn't end up with the point being on a shape that I could use to turn it without moving the cardstock, I really couldn't turn it precisely. And all that helped me decide that I really like the minimal look of just the 2 waves of dots. To finish this one, I added another Julie Hickey die cut thank you from that same set. These words come with shadows, which will be nice if I ever do want them to take up more space on my card. I used the bouncy font to kind of play in with those curving dots. So as it turns out, Stencils 360, and this is the original larger size tool, has a similar stencil set called Sacred Lotus. The sizes of the petals are slightly different to the Stencil Builder petals, so this is going to give me the ability to create even more looks by combining them. And if I use the Stencil Builder in this tool, I have more options for placement because I can use the turning guide. I can place the stencil right in the center, or I can move it so that the point is in the corner of the guide. And that means that I'm going to be building a flower where the petals don't all join up in the center. There's a space. So that's something you can't really do with the Stencil Builder. Or can you? You know I love a challenge, so stick around. For this one, I did a 6-petal flower, and then I offset the smaller petals to fill in the gaps between the larger ones. I ran out of time, and I didn't make a card with this one. Now let's see if I can do something similar with the Stencil Builder. I've put down my cardstock, and now I want to center the wreath builder over top. This is more important this time, because I want the amount of white cardstock under the tool to be the same on all 4 sides. I took the stencil and I moved the edge so that it's running along the edge of the white cardstock. I used the left and right edges to help me keep it centered, and that's allowing me to move the petal away from the center. The key is that you want the same amount away from the center each time you blend your ink through to build a balanced design. So using a grid mat under the Stencil Builder and beyond could allow you to move it even further. I started by doing only these 4 petals, mostly because at this point I wasn't 100% sure how I was going to do the corner petals. But in the end, it was actually pretty easy. I put the point of the stencil up to the corner of the white cardstock I could see through the base, and then I blended that way. Now in the end, I think the 4 corner petals are slightly further out from the center than the first 4, but as long as these 4 are even, it still looks good. I used some tape to help me hold the stencil in place as I worked, since I was literally coloring outside the lines this time. Again, I didn't have time to make a card, but this is another good lesson I learned about the versatility of the Stencil Builder. So there's my first day thoughts on this exciting new tool. I already have and love the Stencils 360, so I'll probably continue to use those more often. But the Stencil Builder is definitely less expensive and it's easier to store. And without all the options of the different angles, it's maybe even easier to use. I am excited to see the new stencil designs that Gina K will come up with, since they work well with both my 360 tools. And I'm interested to hear what you think. Do you have the Stencil Builder? Do you love it? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.